In a fine tradition of me traveling the world giving other people's presentations, here I am again. I'm presenting Gert Doering's work, his global IPv6 routing table analysis. So none of this is my work, and I happily take your comments back to him, and I answer them when I can. So, and also, the slides have been modified from his original version, as you'll see in some of the later slides, and when the headers get a little more interesting. And I'm sure that just wanted to make to let you know that that's my doing and not his, because it's kind of not keeping to the the theme of the original slides. So we're going to talk about what the global IPv6 routing table is, some numbers, some pictures, some recommendations, and his original slides, so that you can compare them with these, are available at that URL. And these, another version of these will be available on the NANOG site, but I doubt if the quotes-laden version will be available. So what's the global v6 routing table? It's what you get when you connect to the internet with BGP 4++. And people are actually doing that. Actually, how many people in this room are doing v6? Ooh, more than last time. Cool. It's a mixture of different kinds of address space, 6-bone address space, and the regional internet registry address space like ARIN, RIPE, APNIC, LACNIC. There's actually a new regional registry. There's some ASs that still announce only 6-bone space, but as you'll see later, the 6-bone is starting to decommission itself, so some of that will transition. The network infrastructure differs from region to region, and the peering agreements are somewhat loose, not like they are with v4. So transit's usually free, which creates some really interesting instabilities. And lots of ASNs don't filter anything, and that's unfortunate. And there's still a lot of tunnels. There's a lot of problems with tunnels. Actually, one of Kay's diagrams of the tunnels would probably be pretty cool. So this is a pretty big overall of the different prefix lengths. And then if you look at the first three columns, global, RIR space, and 6-bone space, those in the parentheses on the end are what those numbers were on 5/13/2003. So this is September of 2003 is what's in the main part, and then the stuff in parentheses is what it was in May. So there were 266/32s, and of those 238 are RIR space and 28 are 6-bone space, and that sort of thing. So you can browse through this. There are a lot of /48s being advertised, and some of the reason for that, I think, is because, yet again, the multi-home solution isn't here. So people are doing the best they can and advertising more specifics. And then there are a lot of pathologies that we'll talk about later. There are actually some /64s in the global routing table, which, kind of, well, like /32s. Yay. Okay, and the 624 address space, there's several companies, organizations, ISPs announcing it, and they're looking for more because it's sort of like an Anycast for 6-4, which is a translation address space. And there's a guy you can contact if you want to become a relay. And there are actually more specifics being seen, which is a big no-no. I'm not a big 6-4 person, so I can't really give you much more than that. So the total number of prefixes over the last 24 months is this. So each line on the x-axis is a month, and the number is on the y-axis. So there are these big spikes. We'll talk about some of those later. But it's increasing, and there's about, 480 total. I'll talk about that some more. And this is a breakdown of the RIR space versus the 6-bone space. So the 6-bone space is green, and the RIR space is red, and it's no surprise that the RIR space is getting bigger because they're starting to assign blocks, and in the beginning they weren't. It was just 6-bone. So the 6-bone's kind of going down a little bit, and the RIR is kind of going up. No big surprise. This is the prefixes in the last 3 months, one compared to the other. So the red is the RIR space, and the green is the 6-bone space. And you can see that there's some really interesting little bleeps on here, and I'll talk about those some more in a few minutes. And this is, again, not a huge surprise. So back in, what does it look like, almost a year ago, maybe a little more than a year ago, the registries changed their policy. So your minimum allocation used to be a /35, now it's a /32. So, and there was a trade-in program, a trade-up program for the /35 holders to get /32s. So the /32s are the green and the /35s are the red. So it's no big surprise that the 32s are going up and the 35s are going down. But there are a lot of people that still haven't gone back to get their new and improved huge space because they probably don't need it. So, the summary of all of this, there are 429 blocks assigned by the regional registries out of 2001/16. And this is the breakdown. So the main number, like 76, is how it was in September of this year, and the 63 is what it was in May. So Aaron's assigned 76, APNIC 112, RIPE is leading the race with 238, and LACNIC, the new registry, is starting to assign some. RIPE actually went back to ICANN and got a new block of address space. So they've used up their first one and they went back to get another one. And somebody actually got a /31 in September, which is a huge amount of address space. So let's see, some more information. There's some micro allocations that have been happening for root servers. Let's see what else. There's a 371 total unique prefix or AS numbers, so it's growing from last time. I don't remember exactly what it was last time, but it was quite a bit less. Let's see. And this is a breakdown of prefixes by region, but these are regions from RIPE because Gert gives this talk at the RIPE meetings and he's in Germany. So like the countries are up in the corner. And it's a breakdown by country, basically in Europe, France, and the Netherlands and such, if you're interested. Okay, this graph I learned a lot when I had to figure out what this graph meant. At the bottom, those are all the shortened version of each allocation that's given from ICANN to an RIR. Okay, so those are the /24s. And then the y-axis is the number of /29s out of that /24 that are allocated. So when the RIR gives you a block, a /32, they actually reserve it out of a /29, and the reservations are apparently quite long-lived. So what Gert has done, it has broken it down by that, since in essence when you get a /32, the /29 is used for all intents and purposes. So this is a breakdown of. And basically, what you can take away from this is that there's a lot more that have been allocated than are in the routing table. And the newer ones, it's even more so. So people are getting address space a long time in advance of when they're advertising it. Unlike in v4, when you get a block and you needed it a week ago, and you're frantically trying to get it in the routing table, it doesn't seem to be occurring with v6. Not really sure why. So, anyway. So this is the beginning of the changes to the titles of the talk. So there's a lot of interesting things that are happening out on the network that are almost like things we've seen before, actually exactly like things we've seen before. So again, we have the It's All Mine incident where an AS decided that they were going to advertise everything as /32s. And various things, and they're not. Gert's not really sure how they did this, because if they were like redistributing it a couple of times from one protocol into another, they would still only be re-advertising routes that actually existed in the routing table. But there are routes that were never seen before or since this incident, and he's not really sure how they did that. But that was one of the big spiky things in the graph. Let's see. Oh, and the other really interesting thing about this is there were two uniquely independent autonomous systems using AS1654, which of course we know is not a useful thing to do, and we're not really sure why they were doing that either. This one is a bug, and it's a withdrawal bug. And what happens is there are these paths that stay around in the routing table for weeks until somebody resets a session. So they'll just kind of hang out there, even though the route's gone away. It's not the count to infinity bug. He's done quite a bit of work on this. It's actually a different bug. This is my very favorite one. These are actually like really long paths that the route goes away and the paths grow and grow and grow, and then they all of a sudden go away all by themselves. And what people do is there's not a lot of peering policies like we have now. So as an ISP, I'll peer with a whole bunch of people, and then I'll just redistribute everything that I hear to everyone else. So, you know, usually if you're a transit provider, or not a transit provider, you don't re-announce all your peers' routes to all your other peers. But in V6 land right now, that's what everybody's doing. And so you get into these situations where it takes a while for all the redistributions from all the other networks to go away. It's pretty cool. This one is is a filtering thing. I guess nobody's reading the headers on these because they're actually kind of funny. You know, just didn't know how to do those ACLs, so we're gonna, you know, advertise a whole bunch of more specifics because, you know, the route map just didn't work as we intended. Maybe we need one of those tools from earlier. So, and let's see, this one is something we've all seen a million times before. Private AS is getting advertised just because they should, and I guess people are getting better at cleaning it up, but it's still not going away. So let's see. So what's new? What's the news? Like I said, the 6-bone is going away, which is, you know, it was a great experiment, and a lot of work's been done. Some of the bad things that were happening are starting to decrease, like the number of bogon networks and stuff is going away. Unallocated AS numbers being announced is getting less. There's commercial IPv6 backbones in Europe, and I probably think that Gert wants to know anybody else who might be doing that, so we'll talk about that. There's still a lot of tunnels going on, and there's problems with the tunnels, like countries and, you know, organizations in Europe will get one tunnel for all of their transit, you know, their outside traffic, but it goes to the US. So to get to another part of Europe, they're going through the US and then back, you know, all that kind of stuff is still lovely and happening. So you should always get more than one tunnel. Folks are actually using traceroute because, you know, it hasn't been around very long and we need to start using it. Let's see. I like this one. IPv6 is no worse than IPv4. I'm not sure if that's a bonus. And US is starting to get more allocations. Before it was moving along slower. So what needs to be done? Work needs to be done on filtering recommendations, and it seems like this group probably has a lot of that information from before. There's also a group doing a IPv6 minimum peering policy, and I have a reference to that, and I'd encourage people to get involved because there's some differences, and people are trying to put that down so that, you know, so that there's recommendations. Bad tunnels need to go away. People need to stop, you know, giving transit to the world. Although, you know, if you don't pay for transit, that's kind of nice. Bug your ISP to offer IPv6. So all you ISPs, use traceroute, get rid of non-useful tunnels, that kind of stuff. So the MIP, I was talking about the minimum peering policy project recommendations. Like I said, don't peer over bad tunnels, use prefix filters, filter private ASNs. You know, all that stuff we do in V4 needs to happen in V6. You should only give transit if the person you're giving transit to wants it. And don't, like I said, don't take transit from too many peers. And again, avoid your single upstream over an intercontinental tunnel. You know, it's all stuff that we've heard before in V4. And these are the references, and again, I'd like to stress the MIP one because they're looking for folks to participate, and it seems to me that at some point we're going to be really fired up about V6 here, and being involved in the policy making is a really good thing. And, oh, wait. And so that's the end of this talk, but in the fine tradition of quotes that I collect, like all these headers, I had a couple that I thought were of particular interest. So if you were reading your email, you might want to just stop and look up for a minute, because this one is my favorite. This was actually in a trouble ticket where I used to work. And I would say that if you could unreboot the switch, that would be cool. And I had a couple more. So anyway, and the first one on here was also in a trouble ticket because we need to left justify all the cards in the router. Anyway, thanks. And the last one was actually a Randy Bush quote. I like that. I left off part of it because I didn't want to offend anyone. So, are there any questions?